Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. If you're new, hit that sub button. We're here to give you great NFL content. Stay tuned. But the most surprising game was obviously this Detroit Lions versus the Dallas Cowboys game. The Detroit Lions had their way with Dallas the entire game. It looked like a preseason game where they're just practicing, figuring out things that they like. You don't usually see this in the National Football League, people. You don't usually see teams practicing, hey, we're gonna throw it to this lineman. Hey, we're gonna try this trick play. They ran 4 or 5 trick plays in that game. I said it before, I'll say it again. I was not a fan of the Zimmer hire for the Dallas Cowboys, and you're seeing it. You're seeing what he does is just not the right fit for the league at this time. And the players aren't responding to his system. They're not playing well in it. And they're undermanned right now. They're banged up without DeMarcus Lawrence, without Micah Parsons. They just don't, Deron Bland at corner. They just don't look like the same defense. But you still shouldn't get blown out 47-9. And it really wasn't that close. They could have had more. There were a couple times they got too cute in the red zone where they were trying to complete trick plays, trying to give a middle finger to the Dallas Cowboys in the National Football League and the referees that took away their touchdown last year because the offensive lineman didn't report. Like, at the point Dallas took their starters out, the Detroit Lions had 457 yards to their 168 yards of total offense. That is embarrassing. I can't emphasize it enough. Like, you can't win a National Football League like this. This is their 3rd straight loss. And they had another horrible loss earlier this season, 44-19 to the New Orleans Saints at home. And this is their worst home loss since 1988, 5th worst loss in the history of this franchise. Jerry Jones said before the season started, they were all in. They've given up 40-plus points twice at home in 3 games, but they were all in. Made no free agent moves that were substantive, had any substance to them. So you made no crazy free agent moves. Your offensive line is worse. You lose Tyron Smith. You draft a rookie, still going to develop. We don't know what he is yet, but he's not Tyron Smith. And although Tyron was banged up, he still was a very solid player, high-level player. This offensive line is a big part of the problem. You can't run the football, so you can't run the football. You're a one-dimensional team. You're expecting Dak Prescott to have the season he did last year, but last year the running game was better. And when you're able to run the ball, when you're able to play good defense, it takes pressure off the quarterback, and they're not doing that. I don't know what I expected from them, but I didn't. I expected this game to be a lot better than what it was. Micah Parsons, people are talking about him doing his podcast and the distractions and the team. They're 3-3. They're 3-3. So they're fine. They're in the middle of this NFC East race that just doesn't seem like as strong of a division this year. The Commanders, who look like a really cool, fun team to watch, lost to the Baltimore Ravens in a close game. Philadelphia Eagles beat the 1-5 Browns by 4 points at home. You know, their fans are booing Sirianni and calling for him to get fired, and he's chirping back at the fans. So there's a lot of chaos in the NFC East right now. So it's not out of hand, but it just doesn't feel like a season where there's a lot of hope, even when you have hope. I'm sure Dallas Cowboy fans don't have a lot of good things to talk about. Offensively, they look disconnected, disjointed. Dak Prescott, 17-33, 178, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and just 2 bad interceptions. They were overthrows. To Branch, he made the good play. He caught the ball. I mean, I can't say he made a great play because these were overthrown footballs, but he made the play, almost took one of them back for a touchdown. He was sacked 4 times. Could have been sacked more than that, but he got rid of the ball. CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches for 89 yards on 14 targets. Just hasn't had the production that we've expected from him. And after my comment last year, everybody got on me and killed me. You look at you wrong. Now, everybody's coming back to earth. And Dak Prescott's coming back to earth. CeeDee Lamb is coming back to earth. And it's because this offensive line more than anything, and he needs a number 2 receiver. We thought, you hear rumblings throughout training camp, it's Tolbert. It wasn't Tolbert. He had a big drop, and a lot of people were saying, hey, maybe it's the sun and the glare of that stadium. Jerry, this has been an issue in this stadium for years, and it's time to get it fixed. If it's affecting your players and it's affecting the other team, then it's not a home field advantage of any kind. So you need to put, I don't know if they're gonna shade that or put some tint on the windows or something, because it's an issue when you're looking in that direction and the sun is positioned in a certain way. I played in that stadium. It becomes a really big issue, and it was an issue in one of Dak Prescott's interceptions, it appears. But let's talk about the Detroit Lions, because Mitchell isn't here today because he was at the game. So I don't want to go without speaking about the Detroit Lions, that Honolulu blue wearing team. They got their revenge and they kept their foot on the gas the entire game. Even once the backups came in, they were still throwing the ball, trying to get a touchdown, caused a turnover. Defense caused 2 turnovers once the backups came in. So they weren't slowing down at all. Jared Goff played an incredible game, 18 of 25 for 315, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and it just looked so easy. He looked like he was playing pitch and catch in practice against the scout team the entire game. He looked comfortable in the pocket. He did get sacked a few times, but that's going to happen. But this offensive line bullied the Dallas Cowboys the entire night. David Montgomery had 12 carries for 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs also had 12 carries for around 67 yards, I think. No touchdowns, but they were able to get what they wanted on the ground. Sam Laporta had the 1 catch off the flea flicker for a touchdown. Looked really good. On the other side, there's a lot of calls for concern, and prayers go out to Aidan Hutchinson, who has been having an incredible season, a phenomenal season, leading the league in sacks. Got a sack in this game. On that play, tragically, it appeared that he broke his leg. You hate to see any kind of injuries like that, especially an injury that just looks so devastating and gruesome. So prayers go out to him and his family that he has a healthy, a fast, quick recovery, and he's able to be the same player or a better player than he was before the injury, because he's a big part of the heartbeat of this defense. He's a great analogy of what this team stands for, who they are: hardworking, gritty player, works hard, play in and play out, does everything, does all the little things, does all the dirty work, and was really, really, really a big-time leader on this defense and a big-time playmaker. And that's a huge loss for this Detroit Lions team, so prayers go out to him. Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph both have an interception in the game. They played really good games. Their secondary, their team, you just feel like this Detroit Lions team is starting to gel and starting to arrive. After a season where you lose an NFC championship and you get all the way to the promised land and you kind of surprise people and sometimes surprise yourselves, sometimes there's a bit of a lull and sometimes there's a bit of a hangover, a disappointment of what you could have been. But Ben Johnson came back, and his play calling is more creative than ever. This offense looks as good as ever. He's finding ways to get everybody involved. Jamison Williams, who's a big-time playmaker, had 3 catches for 76 yards. He found him in a number of ways. And that's something that he seems like he's focused on, spreading the ball all around. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown got his in this game. A really cool touchdown reception at the end of the game, corner of the end zone, front corner of the end zone from Jared Goff. But I'm just really feeling like this team is going to be there late in the season, late in January, and competing for the Super Bowl this year, potentially, or at least an NFC championship again. San Francisco 49ers picked up a big win this week, but coming off a really, really concerning loss to the Arizona Cardinals, who again got their faces kicked in this week by the Green Bay Packers and did not look good. Only scored 13 points in the ball game. But I think this Detroit Lions team is the bee's knees. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. It's going to be tough. I want to see how they compete against the Minnesota Vikings, because they're the cream of the crop right now in the North, and I know it's unexpected, but they're 5-0. They're playing good football. They've beat some of the NFC's best. mainly the San Francisco 49ers out in Minnesota. So this is a division opponent. This division with them, Detroit's 4-1, Minnesota's 5-0. I think the Chicago Bears are 4-2 now. Caleb Williams is starting to come around and play good football. Went out to London and had his way with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this is going to be one of the toughest divisions in football. It already was. We just talked about the Green Bay Packers putting a whooping on the Arizona Cardinals in Lambeau. They're 4-2. It's pointing towards some really, really fun matchups, some really, really fun, meaningful games in November and December, and I can't wait to see it because they're likely going to put at least three teams in the playoffs this year. That's the way it's trending, and of course, one of them is going to be the Detroit Lions, and that offensive line. Again, these teams are built in the trenches, and the teams built in the trenches usually have a lot of success in the playoffs. And speaking of that matchup, we're getting that matchup that I'm talking about next week. The Lions are in Minnesota to play the Minnesota Vikings, coming off a bye week. I can't wait to watch that game. The Cowboys have a bye week to think about this 47-9 drubbing that they just took at the hands of the Detroit Lions. I mean, they just look better in every possible way.